Hello everyone. In this video, I will be discussing Packet Tracer Lab 1.17, which focuses on the basic switch configuration. The main objective of this lab is to provide a practical demonstration of deploying and configuring a basic switch setup on a newly unboxed switch device. During the lab, I will guide you through the process of connecting to the switch using the console methods. We will then proceed to configure some essential settings and parameters. Finally, we will verify the network connectivity between the PC and the switch by using the assigned IP addresses for both devices. By the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding of how to perform these fundamental configurations on a switch. So let's get started. Okay, part one. So let's start to move the switch in the PC to the right space on this lap here. So we'll drag a switch S1 here, and then we're gonna drag the PC here. Okay, so the idea here is that how do you configure a switch, right? From a manufacturer, how do you connect to that switch and start to modify its configuration? This is very real live job scenario, I would say. So once you have a switch ready, right, unboxed, you're gonna need a laptop or a PC that you will use to connect to it. But how, right? So the cable that you're gonna need to connect to that switch from your PC, it's called console cable, right? So this right here is the console cable. So you click on that. So you want to make sure you connect to the right port on the PC. On your laptop, there's a port here called SR232. So you want to connect your console cable to that. So you want to connect the other end of that cable to the switch console port. So for you to do this lab on this switch here, just right click and you want to inspect the rear of the switch. So normally a console port tend to locate behind that switch, right? So in this case, here is the console port, so you want to connect to that. All right. So once you have the cable connected, you want to turn on the PC here. Okay, so then you click on the PC, go to desktop, go to terminal, keep the settings the same, you want to hit OK. So you're going to be presented with this screen, right? So this basically the system of the switch. Okay, so every time you log into a switch, any network device, Cisco network device, you're going to be presented with this initial screen. So it asks, would you like to enter the initial configuration dialog? For our class, we're going to have to say no. All right, so if you say yes, essentially it's just going to take you to step-by-step configuration of the switch, right? You do the basic steps of that switch, which is okay too, but we want to do no here so that we can manually go back and forth to do basic configuration of this switch. Once you able to get to this screen, essentially you are done with step one for this lab. So step two, So step two, it's the part where you're gonna start to do some basic configuration here. Um, so before we jump into some of the shell command and configurations, I like to kind of do a little bit of review on the modes for the this particular switch here, or any Cisco switch. Um, you might have learned this already in CCNA1, but let's just do a quick review here, because the modes uh, in the operating system of the switch are quite important. Okay, so what you seeing at the beginning, once you log into the switch through your console connection, you're going to be presented with this mode. Pay attention to this symbol here. So this is the user exact mode prompt, right? So in this mode, you can't do much, right? You can't change anything in the switch configuration. So this mode essentially just give you a few shell command that you can kind of look through and see what's on the switch, like the version of the switch, right, etc. So we want to move beyond this mode, where we move to the next mode, which is privilege exact mode. Okay, so you do that by tapping enable. So in this mode, it's still, you can't change anything to the switch configuration, but you have more options to do shell command to that's more than the previous mode, the user mode. Okay, so the next mode would be configure terminal, right? So configure terminal, which you tap in configure terminal. So in this mode is where you're going to spend most of your time doing configurations of the switch, right? All right, so those are the three modes that hopefully you remember from CCNA1. If not, then hopefully you can read up on that a little bit more. Okay, so we in the configure terminal mode, which we don't need to be for this lab yet at this part of the exercise. All right, so let's go through some questions in this lab. So let's, where did it go? Okay, sorry. So C, examine the startup configuration file in NVRAM. So let's do that shell command here. So pay attention to see where the mode of this syntax is, right? This is privilege exact mode, right? With that number symbol. Okay. All right. So let's go back to that mode by tapping in exit. So here I'm at the same mode as the exercise. So let's tap in the command show startup config. All right, so it says startup config is not present. And why is that? The reason that it's not present because we have not saved the configurations, right? Remember, whenever you work on the switch configurations, you want to save that configurations before you move on. So whenever you save the configuration, which is like copy run config to startup config, then you put the run and config into the startup config, right? So at that point, when you do show startup config, you will be presented with a saved configurations. In this case, we have not done that, so that's why you have not seen or the message that pop up here say that it's not present. Okay, All right, so D, examine the characteristic of SVI for VLAN 1. Okay, so let's do the same show command up on the exam, show interface VLAN 1. All right, so here it is. So what this is basically the statistic of this interface called VLAN 1. Okay, so this is a logical interface, right? There's a logical interface and physical interface, and we'll touch on that, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. All right, so essentially all this information will get explained over the course of the class, so don't worry about all this right now. Let's move to the questions. Right? Is there an IP address assigned to VLAN 1? Okay, so with this command, you don't get to see the IP address, right? So there is another command that's not mentioned in this exam, but I will show you guys here. Show IP interface brief. Okay, so this syntax, this command here, will tell you if there's an IP address assigned to an interface. So here you see the gigabits, right? 101 to 124, so etc. And then you have the interface VLAN 1, right? So you see the different. So these are the physical interface on the switch, right? So these interfaces, you can plug a cable, right? The VLAN 1 interface, like I mentioned, it's a logical interface, which it's represent a logical concept, right? You will learn a lot more about that on later chapter, but that's basically the difference, right, between physical interface and logical interface. So the IP address here, right, on VLAN 1 unassigned, so there's no IP address for it yet. Okay, so step F here, it says connect the Ethernet cable from PC, right, from the PC in this lab to the switch interface, physical interface gig 106. So let's do that. So for the cables, we don't want to use console, right? Console is just kind of like a different type of cables, but we want to connect using Ethernet cable, which represent any of these here. So I'm going to pick this one. So this is the port on the PC that we're going to connect the Ethernet cable, right? Right. So we want to connect to 6, which is all right. So once you have this cable connected from PC to switch 1 gigabit 106, right? So you're done with that F part of the questions. All right, so as soon as you connected the interface from the PC to your switch, to the switch, if you look at the terminal console of that switch, you're gonna see the message that appear here. It's saying that the interface have changed from down, which is up here, obviously nothing connected to it, so that's why it was down. Once you connected the PC, the interface, it's up. All right, so let's move to question I here. So the exam, the Cisco iOS version. So let's put in that show command here, show version. All right, again, remember, we are in privilege mode, right? With that symbol, show version. So this is essentially telling you what operating system version of this switch, right? Which version that it is running. So it's run 16.3.2, okay? And this is the model of the Cisco switch here. C3650 and 24 PS, okay? Okay, so let's do another show command here. Show interface gig 106. So this interface appear to be connected and online up. Okay, question K, exam default VLAN setting of a switch. So let's do another show command, show VLAN. So here's a show VLAN. So VLAN 1 is the default VLANs. The ports that are in VLAN 1, here are a lot of them. By default, all the ports belong to VLAN 1. VLAN 1 will always be in this switch, right, by default. Is VLAN 1 active? Yes, it is active. So what type of VLAN is the default VLAN? So normally, a default VLAN use case for management of a switch, right? Okay, so last question of part 1 is looking at the flash memory. So the switch obviously comes with some sort of storage, right? Storage of informations that you can save. So the switch uses flash as a storage here, right? So you can look into what inside the flash of the switch, like what type of data that's stored in there. So here we'll issue the show flash. So show flash, you can see the software of the switch, the operating system of the switch contained inside the flash is storage, right? And then the VLAN.dat file. Again, you can look at the flash more detail with the dir command, right? So here you see the same thing, right? All right, so that concluded part 1 of this exercise. Okay, so let's move to part 2 here. Configure basic network device setting. So these are the configurations that we're gonna change in the switch, right? Then we're gonna set up some IP addresses on this switch. Then we're gonna assign an interface to the VLAN 99. And then we want to verify all settings are correct, and then we're gonna test the connectivity. Okay. All right, so let's begin with some basic setting here. All right, so again, when you modify anything in this switch configuration, you need to go to the config terminal mode, right? So pay attention to the symbols as well as this word right here, configure. So you in this mode is where you can change the configurations. So the first one will be no IP domain lookup. So let's do that. No IP domain lookup. You tap it in there, you hit enter. Okay. So what this command does is that whenever you tap something, the switch will not try to resolve a domains to whatever that you trying to type. Okay, so it doesn't need to look for DNS resolution basically. All right, so next command is hostname S1. So this command hostname here is modifying the switch name, right? So here you can see switch, right? Once you hit hostname S1, that switch is now identified as S1, right? So let's move on to the next command will be password, service password encryption. So this command is to encrypt all the non-encrypted password, right, that's in the switch, right? So we have not configured any password yet, but we can kind of put this configurations first. So any syntax, any password that we're going to put in plain text will be encrypted. All right, so next will be enable secret class. All right, so this is the password class. Okay, the secret is basically making this class words to be encryption, to be encrypted. So every time you change modes from user mode to privileged mode, right? You put, obviously you enter enable. It's going to require you to a password class for you to be able to log into or to change the mode. All right, let's do banner mod of the day. So what this is basically, once you when somebody logging into a switch, right, it's going to be presented with whatever the message that you put here for them to read before they log into this switch. This is just to make sure you would given a notice or warning of a user that's attempt to log into the switch that he or she is unauthorized. So just make sure that you kind of provide the warning, the message for whoever logging into this switch to understand what they are about to log into. So we'll just follow what they have here is unauthorized access is strictly prohibited. Right. So if you want to end the message, right, you want to basically using the same characters that you start the message, right? So in this case, I will using the pound, right, or the number, the pound symbol. That's basically initiate what is the message that it's gonna be, right? Then when I'm done with that message, I want to initiate the pound symbol to conclude the message, right? All right, so I think question A part 2, step 1 completed. All right, so part B is configuring IP address. All right, so the exercise wants you to configure a VLAN 99 and then set the IP address of the VLAN 99 which is up here. Okay, so let's do that. So VLAN 99. Okay, we want to set up the SVI, the logical interface VLAN 99, so we can put the IP address on it. So it'll be interface VLAN 99, IP address 192.168.1.2, 255.255.255.0. That's the subnet mask. So this is IP version 4. We also want to put IP version 6. See, I'm getting the IP address from up here, right? From what's given here. I type in exactly what appear there. So let's do a no shutdown to kind of turn the interface up. All right, so that is B. So C would be assign all user ports to VLAN 99. So remember we connected the PC to this switch on port 6, gigabit 6. So we want to go into that interface, right? Interface gigabit 106. And we want to assign the VLANs 99 to this switch, okay? So this is the syntax here, switch port access VLAN 99. Okay, next is we want to assign let's issue the show VLAN brief command to see what we see here. So remember, every time you do a show command, you want to exit to the privilege mode, right? Show VLAN brief. Okay. So here you can kind of see there how many VLANs are here and what interfaces are assigned to that particular VLANs. When we go into VLANs and SVI in the later chapters to give you a better understanding of what VLANs are there for and why the interface needs to be inside the certain VLANs. But at this point, let's just follow what this lab is asking us, okay? All right. So let's configure a default gateway for the switch. So IP default gateway 192.168.1.1, okay. Okay, so step F here is basically asking you to assign a password when you log into the switch using the console. Right? Remember at the beginning we logged into the switch with the console cables. There's no password, right? So for security reason, you need to configure a password. So let's do that. So line console 0. There's only one line console 0. You want to set the password, Cisco. Then you want to follow up with the login. So follow with the login synchronous. So if you don't remember what this syntax or this command used for, just a quick review here. It basically put in the your configurations lined, matching up with what I guess with what you are doing. So when you good example would be when you type in something and there's a message or messages that appear on the switch during your configuration, your typing, and it kind of messes up with with the line. So this basically put your configurations or what you're doing into the next line, right below the messages that the switch is it's showing you. So I want to emphasize on this question here: why is the login command required? So okay, before we go to that, let's look at number G. So G asking us to configure the telnet. So this is remote access to the switch, not console but remote. So telnet is a remote applications, right? So that means we need to go to line VTY 0 to 15 or 4. And 15 we'll use 15. There's 15 remote sessions. So let's configure the password for that. So password Cisco as well, right? Make sure we put in the word logins. The logins required because if you don't do this, then what the Cisco switch, this Cisco switch will not gonna present you with the prompt to enter your password when you remote in. So you make sure you follow with the logins every time you need to configure line VTY password. All right, so that is step 1. I'm sorry, step 2, part 1. So let's move to step 2, part 2. All right, so this is involved with setting up the IP address on the PC. So we've done pretty much most configurations on the switch for this exercise. So let's finish that up with the PC. So on the PC, click the PC here. You could exit the terminal and go back to this desktop with all the applications here. You want to go to the IP configurations, change to static, and input the IP address here. So follow what this is telling you here. So the PC will have 192.168.1.10. Subnet mask is 255.225.225. Default gateway is .1. So you want to use the IP version 6 as well. It'll be 201. I think the all right, so this would okay, this is what you needed for the step 2 for the PC. Okay, so let's X out that. Okay, part 3 of part 3. Okay, so let's just now we just need to verify the configuration that we added, then test the connectivity between the PC and the switch. Okay, so let's do that. So pay attention to what highlighted here and look at your configurations. If anything that missing, you can just go ahead and add that. Okay, so let's go back to the terminal of the switch. All right, so here I am. So we want to do a show run configuration command here, short for show run. So let's go through. So I have, okay, seem like I have everything configured. Okay, let's do another show command here. This one is important to see if we have the VLAN 99 interface configure, which I think we did. Show interface VLAN 99. Alright, so what is the bandwidth of this interface? The bandwidth is about 100,000 kilobits. What is the VLAN 99 state? That is in the up state, right? Online. And protocol state, line protocol, it's also up online. Alright, so now we test the connectivity between the switch and the PC through the IP that we assigned to them. So let's go to the PC. So on the PC, you can go to command prompt here, and here you can ping. Ping is one of the tool that you can use to verify the communication between network devices. Okay, so we'll ping 192.168.1.2. That is, remember this IP address? We put this IP address on interface VLAN 99, right? So the ping has, so we get replies from that switch, which means that the communication between the switch and the PC, it's good. So you can ping IP version 4, as well IP version 6. I think I don't remember I configured IP version 6 on VLAN 99, or maybe I did. Let's try to ping that as well. Okay, so yeah, so I do get a reply, so that means IP version 4, IP version 6 are working. Okay, so step 3 of part 3 is to test and verify the remote connections from the PC. So how did we log into the switch? We log into the switch by using this console cable that physically connected to this switch, right? And if I were to remove this cable, so it won't let you remove here, but let's say if I did, then the only way to remote into the to connect to the switch would be through this green cable that using the IP address that we assigned to the PC and the switch, right? So that's called remote connections, remote access to the switch. So to do that, we can test that because we already assigned the IP address to both devices, right? So we can go to the desktop and go to the remote applications called Telnet and SSH. You want to use a Telnet to simplify things, and you want to punch in the switch IP address, right? That is the IP address on VLAN 99 here, and see if you can connect to it. So you can see the connections is successful, and you can see that banner that you configured earlier appear on the connections, right? So the password that we set to access this switch was Cisco. We want to enter that. So again, when you begin your initially connections into the switch, the mode that the switch will let you operate is user mode, right? With that symbol. So you want to move to privilege mode, enable. It's going to ask you for another password, which we assigned earlier as the enable secret class. So enter class here. So now you fully authorize into this switch, right? So now you can move to configure terminal, and here is where you can again change the configurations. So once you get to this step and you are able to log into the switch through Telnet, then at this point I say that you have successfully configured this lab. And I think I'm gonna stop here. Hopefully this has been informative and helpful to you. So I'll see you guys on the next Packet Tracer video.